Part 49. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 482. Alan's collection of paintings. A soul painter as always. But at this time, this crooked painting became the key to Yilin's breakthrough. At the moment when Alan's painting was torn into pieces, the scene of full moon night changed drastically again. Misty gray fog covers the sky and obscures the full moon. The stars in the sky twinkled through the fog, like eyes ready to move. Deep in the gray mist, a twisted monster with fat and thin body parts and missing limbs loomed. This momentary change caused Emperor Zuchong and Zhao Taiqian's offensive to slow down a beat. As senior apostles and ancient warriors with quick reactions, they subconsciously raised their vigilance the moment Yilin used an unknown item. Killing Yilin is important, but it's not worth sacrificing your own life just to kill Yilin. This is the weakness of human nature. Yilin could see clearly. At this moment, the twinkle in the eyes of Emperor Zuchong and Zhao Taiqian was clearly caught by Yilin. It's an illusion. Emperor Zuchong reacted 2 seconds later, knowing that he had been deceived. He was furious, and his fists once again ignited the raging Ming dynasty dragon Qi, with overwhelming murderous intent. But Zhao Taiqian is not very optimistic. The reason why he changed the scene to a full moon night is because of his werewolf ancestry, and he can only obtain epic buff bonuses on full moon nights. The illusion created by Yilin tearing apart Ellen's collection of paintings was just an illusion without any lethality, but it actually blocked the light of the full moon. Zhao Taiqian withered instantly. The hair that stood up like a pig's hyena suddenly shriveled down and became limp when the full moon was obscured. Zhao Taiqian's bloody eyes, filled with bloodthirsty lust, dimmed and regained some clarity. Go down. Yilin took a few steps and pushed towards Zhao Taiqian with a palm from the air. Zhao Taiqian's pupils suddenly shrank, and before he could get out of his bottom-up attack, it was as if his face was hit by an invisible heavy hammer. His wolf face, which was somewhat related to Wang Tiandi, suddenly collapsed, and there were gaps between his teeth. Blood foam and teeth were squeezed out, and the whole person slammed into the ruins and was buried in gunpowder smoke. Another emperor fell. Damn it! Emperor Zuchong never expected this. After Yilin's whole body was ignited with ominous bloody flames, her whole person seemed to be a different person, becoming so terrifying. With every movement, the overwhelming power cannot be resisted by human beings. Is this the strength of the high-level spiritual side? No. Impossible. How could his spiritual energy be so abundant? Emperor Zuchong could tell at a glance that Yilin's current state was very wrong, and it was obvious that he was cheating. But whether it was cheating or cheating, 3 of the 4 emperors were killed in the blink of an eye, leaving only Emperor Zuchong alone to confront Yilin in the air. Lao Zu. Take action. On the ground, the frightened Yulixin, after struggling several times, came again with one arm to fight. He has figured it out now. If he shrinks here, once no one else can stop him, he will be the first to die. Whether it was the hatred that he wanted to kill, or the hatred that Yu Meng had in Kanyang City, either of these 2 reasons was enough for Yilin to prioritize killing him. Good. Emperor Zuchong roared loudly, and he and Yulixin were in the sky and on the ground, forming a pincer attack, and punched Yilin. The golden dragon shadow circled and roared. The blazing flame reflected a bright fire cloud in the grey mist. The 2 emperors did not dare to hold back any more and moved forward without hesitation, vowing to kill Yilin. Under the squeeze of the 2-colored scenery of gold and flames, the illusion surrounding Yilin, who was between the 2, collapsed toward the center. It looks like a painting that was pulled left and right by 2 people, forming a weird twist. The destruction revolver in Yilin's left hand was faintly glowing with blood and misfired. The redeeming revolver in his right hand shook, and he loaded the gun at a high speed that was difficult to distinguish with the naked eye. 6 bullets were fired in a finished shape, sealing Zhu Kongdi's route. Immediately afterwards, Yilin fired the bullet, and the redemption revolver floated beside him. He faced Emperor Zuchong again and stretched out his 5 fingers. In this ever-changing siege, Yilin displayed dazzling and breathtaking abilities. But what made the emperors most vigilant was the indiscriminate explosion created by Yilin's wave, and the weapon that never appeared in the data, the blood-red dagger. So when Yilin extended his meaningful 5 fingers to Emperor Zuchong's expression changed. The shadow of the golden dragon that was charging forward rolled up in front of him, wrapping itself up in an attempt to block Yilin. 6 bullets fired. The true dragon chi of the Ming dynasty is an ancient martial arts that integrates offense and defense created by Emperor Chongzhen of the Ming dynasty. In the blink of an eye, the 6 glowing charged bullets were swept away by the golden true dragon energy, deviated from their original trajectories, and landed behind Emperor Zuchong. But Yilin was not interested in drinking. After Emperor Zuchong decisively returned to defense, he flashed, stepped in the air, and suddenly stopped and turned around. Just right. Ulixin is here to kill. He came. Come with force. It's a fake move. Ulixin's eyes widened and he made another fake move. Are you finished yet? Ulixin didn't have the ability to fly in the air, so he made up his mind to move forward this time. But when Yilin suddenly stopped and turned around, Yuli's heart suddenly became sad. Without any precautions or worries, it was too late for him to run away this time. I've finally waited for you. In the thick fog, it is misty and gloomy. At some point, Yilin put away the salvation revolver and replaced it with a frying pan that looked nothing special. Boom. Yilin smiled kindly. In the rich blood energy, the 2 rows of neat and white teeth in the smile seemed to reflect the light of the underworld, which made Yuli's heart and limbs feel cold and his scalp exploded. Boom. Yilin used a backhand to hit the pillar of fire that Ulixin had blasted out with a punch. The terrifying pillar of fire was shot back by the mediocre pan in the blink of an eye, and returned to where it came from. The dazzling firelight instantly completely submerged Ulixin. In the firelight, Ulixin screamed like a slaughtered pig. Thick black smoke was rising all over his body, and he was scorched by the flames he blasted. Yilin noticed it as early as when Yilin hurt Yuli's heart with Grasp of Annihilation. Although Ulixin can shoot flames with his fists, it seems that his body itself is not immune to the damage of high temperature. To put it bluntly, the explosion was nothing more than the impact of high temperature and explosion. After Ulixin had eaten a complete grip of annihilation, half of his body was burnt black. From this, it can be seen that Ulixin's body was also burnt. Not immune to the damage caused by high temperatures. It's an ordinary frying pan with simple and crude attributes, that is, it can bounce back all attacks. The rebounded attack no longer belongs to Ulixin in terms of the judgment of the props, but becomes damage inflicted by Yilin. Lao Zu, save me. The center of the battlefield changed from the sky to the ground. When Yuli's heart was snapped back by his own flames, Yilin's eyes narrowed and she stepped forward without hesitation. The mighty telekinesis was released with Yilin's movements. In mid-air, Ulixin, who had suffered waves of severe beatings, once again withstood the severe blow from Yilin. On the surface of Ulixin's body, the remaining flames suddenly exploded, and a circle of dazzling fire patterns exploded around Ulixin. The moment he suffered a painful blow to his abdomen, Ulixin suddenly bent into a cooked shrimp in mid-air. The clothes on his back tore open and exploded, and a mixture of red and green spewed out from his mouth. There is bile, overnight meals, and blood in it. Bang, bang. Ulixin fell vertically into the ruins. The ground around him suddenly collapsed and gravel flew up. High in the air, after Yilin knocked Ulixin to the ground with one kick, the bloody light covering her body became a little lighter. The next moment, Yilin also fell from the sky and killed Ulixin, who was writhing in pain on the ground. Lao Zu. Save me. Save me. Ulixin was lying on his back, his bones seemed to be shattered, and it was difficult to move. He watched helplessly as the bloody light and shadow came towards him, with a desperate expression and eyes that were about to burst. The despair in Uligzin's heart at this time was no less than the mood he felt when facing Amorendi's punch in the Z5 Council. Die. At this moment, Uli seemed to see his future a few seconds later, and a big word death flashed in his mind. He doesn't want to die. I don't want to die. Ah! In the air. Yulin, bathed in the blood light, paused and his expression changed slightly. Two figures rose up from the ruins one after another. After a few ups and downs, they stood in front of Uligzin. The two old men were in ragged clothes, their bodies covered with various scars, and their eyes showed helplessness, but they still stood in front of Uligzin. In any case, although the five major families are not as united as they appear on the surface, there are many rivalries secretly. But when the critical moment comes, they will habitually twist into a rope, and both will prosper and suffer. Yingxia raised her head, the hand holding the sword trembling slightly. That's enough. Zhao Taiqian's eyes turned from helpless to cold, and the wolf hairs growing on his body lost their luster. Zhao Taiqian looked deeply at Yilin, who had stopped moving in mid-air. He didn't know whether it was emotion, regret, or a combination of other emotions, but he sighed, it's a pity. Behind Yilin, a terrifying hole was torn open in the dense fog, and the virtual image of the golden dragon boiled the space, killing with a crash. Your psychic powers are not worth much anymore. Emperor Zuchong's eyes flashed with astonishing murderous intent, and he punched Yilin hard in the back without hesitation. Suddenly, when Emperor Zuchong tore through the thick fog and appeared behind Yilin, Uligzin looked horrified, as if he had seen something terrible, and stopped talking. Yilin smiled slightly, but instead of turning around to face Emperor Zuchong, who was boiling with murderous intent, he inexplicably stretched out a finger towards Uligzin and raised it to his mouth. Shhh. Crack. Puff. The phantom of the golden dragon completely passed through Yilin's chest. When Emperor Zuchong punched Yilin's back with a punch containing 100% of the Ming dynasty's true dragon qi, a terrifying punch mark suddenly appeared on Yilin's chest. The terrifying ancient martial arts force raged through Yilin's chest. His ribs, lungs, and heart were torn apart by the terrifying force, causing Yilin's health to drop to the bottom in an instant. 0. At that moment, Yilin's heart stopped beating. After receiving the punch, Yilin's blood vessels exploded one after another, turning him into a bloody man. He fell into the ruins dozens of meters away in an even more embarrassing posture than Uligzin just now. It's over. Yingxia put away the ancient sword. Yeah, it's over. Zhao Taiqian lowered his eyebrows and quickly returned to his human form. That was a punch from Emperor Zuchong at his peak state. I believe that even if Amorendi was punched alive, he would not feel uncomfortable at all. What's more, a spiritual side who is not good at close combat. They had already seen that although Yilin had used explosive skills, in that fierce attack and defense, her spiritual power was already stretched thin, and she was at the end of her strength. That's why Zhao Taiqian said it was a pity. Emperor Zuchong frowned, jumped up, and rushed into the thick fog with his figure like the wind, searching for Yilin's figure. Yilin's chest was covered in blood and flesh, and she was lying there. The blood-colored light on her body was still not dissipated, but she was obviously dying. No wonder I haven't received the kill prompt yet. Emperor Zuchong breathed a sigh of relief and was about to step forward to collect Yilin's box. Boom! Gunfire rang out. Emperor Zuchong's head suddenly exploded. On the empty neck, 2 columns of blood surged from the carotid arteries on both sides, so high. As I said just now, I've finally waited for you. Heard the sudden sound of gunshots. Yingxia and Zhao Taiqian looked shocked. Uligzin fell silent. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 483. Pity. Emperor Zuchong couldn't hear the sentence. Even if his whole head explodes, he can rest in peace. Plop. Emperor Zuchong was shot in the head. His headless body softened and he knelt on the scorched earth. Emperor, kneel down. The emperor fell. Gather the blood. Before Emperor Zuchong died, Yilin did not forget to let the majestic emperor exert his last light and heat. He slightly bent his fingers and drew an illusory blood ball from the headless corpse of Emperor Zuchong. I don't know if it was Yilin's illusion, but that blood ball was very big, very dazzling, and very beautiful. Blood intention level 1, add 6.1. So fat? They are almost equal to the power of 1 unit of Henry Zhang. From this, we can see how high the strength, agility, and mental attributes of the apostle who broke through the first layer of locks are. A 3-star level bloodthirsty catastrophe can only extract 30% of the attribute value and condense it into a bloody will for storage. By reverse calculation, it can be concluded that during his lifetime, Emperor Zuchong's strength, agility, and mental attributes reached as high as 20 points. Apostle 1010, killed the 7th level apostle and obtained death points, 65,246 points. The current number of death points remaining, 102,769. Get chaos value add 2,321. The relics of 7th level apostle, Emperor Zuchong, will now be randomly selected. Please cherish this precious opportunity. Yilin. Something seems wrong. Get ginseng fruit mass production type. Just now, Yilin used her flesh and blood to block Emperor Zuchong's angry punch. Both Yingxia and Zhao Taiqian felt that Yilin was dead. Even they did not dare to use their bodies to resist Zhu Congdi's Ming Dynasty true dragon qi. That terrifying internal energy will destroy the internal organs crazily after entering the human body. There are relevant unofficial historical records that when Emperor Chongzhen of the Ming Dynasty punched Li Ziqin laughed 3 times, turned around, and walked out of the city gate before falling to the ground and dying. When Emperor Zuchong chased Yilin into the thick fog, they all guessed the outcome. Obviously, Emperor Zuchong was going for the other party's relics. Although the Z5 Council composed of the 5 imperial families is a community of destiny, there are also many well-known cracks in it. Yingxia and Zhao Taiqian hesitated for a while, but did not catch up. Otherwise, there will be suspicion of head robbing. But the gunshot made them feel that something was wrong with the ending of the story. But it was just one shot. Just one shot. Impossible, impossible, impossible. Facing the dying man's counterattack, Emperor Zuchong could not avoid it. From beginning to end, Yilin's attacks were all resisted by the 3 of them, and Emperor Zuchong could be said to have suffered the least. Wait, why? When it was all over, they recalled the fierce attack and defense in just a few minutes and realized something was wrong. Yes. Why were they all beaten severely, but Emperor Zuchong was left intact? Why? In an instant. Yingxia and Zhao Taiqian reacted in no particular order, looked at each other, and said in surprise, he did it on purpose. At this time, Ulixin, whose body was charred and smoking, could no longer distinguish his original appearance. Dragging his body with charred flesh, he struggled to get up and said in a deep voice, "Look at the address book, Lao Zhu is dead." What? Impossible. Emperor Zuchong was actually killed? Hearing this, Yingxia and Zhao Taiqian subconsciously felt that it was impossible. But when they opened their respective communication panels, they found that the name Zhu Congdi had completely darkened and would never light up again. Going offline. That is, he is dead. Emperor Zuchong is dead. Yingxia, Zhao Taiqian, and Ulixin were shocked and frightened at the moment when they confirmed the death of Emperor Zuchong. What was shocking was that she never expected that Emperor Zuchong would die suddenly without warning. What was scary was that after Yilin took a full punch from Emperor Zuchong, he was still able to fight back in a one-on-one situation. Emperor Zuchong. This unscientific. Whether it was Yilin's increasingly depressed performance or Yilin's expression just now, the three surviving emperors were convinced that Yilin's spiritual energy was about to be exhausted. For spiritual apostles, the spiritual energy value is equivalent to the second life value. Once the spiritual energy value is exhausted, they will be slaughtered as they please. The moment after the shock, Yingxia quickly drew his sword, faster than ever before. Zhao Taiqian once again transformed into a limp werewolf. Without the blessing of the full moon night, Zhao Taiqian's werewolf bloodline would not be able to exert its most terrifying power. But at this time, as long as it can change, it is better than staying the same, better than nothing. If you can squeeze out even a drop of combat power, it might change the situation of the battle. Ulixin shook his fist vigorously, but only a few sparks remained. He had a dark face and black smoke coming out of his mouth, but he couldn't squeeze out a drop. Lao Ying, Lao Zhao. Yuli's heart trembled as he spoke. Emperor Zuchong was indeed dead. The raised finger really meant this. But Ulixin suddenly had no idea whether Yilin would kill another emperor. Ulixin felt extremely regretful at this moment. He didn't know what possessed him at that moment, making him hesitate, and believe in that kid's evil deeds. Obviously, after Emperor Zuchong died, it was his turn. No one expected that Emperor Zuchong would die here, but he died anyway. The fall of an emperor will bring extremely terrible shock to this country. Power changes, families rise and fall, all overnight. At this moment, Zhao Taiqian and Yingxia understood the weakness in Yuli's heart. Somehow, listening to Ulixin's trembling voice, the two aloof emperors felt a touch of bitterness and sadness in their hearts. Once upon a time, would they have thought that one day they would be forced to do this? Forced to the point where he only dared to defend, knowing that Emperor Zuchong died not far away, but didn't even have the courage to step forward to check? No matter what the final result is, the weak character they could not help but feel at this moment was enough to prove that they were defeated. Ahem. Yilin covered her mouth and coughed. When I opened my palms, I saw they were all covered in blood. Also mixed with visceral mucosal debris. Yilin's life value indeed fell to 0 in an instant after she withstood Emperor Zuchong's punch. His heart also stopped beating for a moment. But he came to life again. The reason for Yilin's heavy job is not because of cheating, nor simply because of inhuman blood. A long time ago, Yilin and Li Erpang were randomly assigned to the same trial for the first time in Gotham City. At that time, Li Erpang was very wealthy. In order to get a higher clearance rating, he used a precious life-saving prop to get the money from Yilin. In exchange for key props to increase points. Temporary pacemaker worry-free implantation version. Although the name of the prop is weird, but the effect is really strong. That is a magical prop that can be used to squeeze out the last drop through the pacemaker effect after the health value returns to 0 when suffering a fatal blow. After Yilin collected this precious life-saving tool, it didn't take long before she crushed it and implanted it into her body. As Yilin left Gotham City, the self-healing ability of the Dionysus factor began to appear in her body. Unless she was in role-playing trials, Yilin rarely encountered the crisis of her health hitting the bottom. So much so that Yilin almost forgot that the pacemaker was still in her body. The feeling of exhaustion surged in like a tidal wave. Yilin forcefully opened the apostle panel and took a look, only to see that the HP column, under the self-healing effect of the unknown bloodline, had just recovered a little, then quickly fell down, and as soon as it recovered, it fell down again. Under these ups and downs, it can be maintained at around 2%-4%. The punch that Emperor Zuchong gave before his death damaged a lot of my internal organs. As the fog became thicker, Yilin felt the movement not far away, and her eyes gradually became cold. Is this the only thing we can do? Emperor Zuchong died so suddenly. If there was a soul after death, It is estimated that he must be in a soul body at this moment, maintaining a confused expression and motionless. Too suddenly. But Yilin's layer-by-layer planning starts with Gu Tianqing's tarot card divination. Before Gu Tianqing left, he told the results of his divination. Total destruction. Betray. Fall. Moreover, Gu Tianqing also said, those 3 cards are related to you. Complete destruction has come true. Under the disaster of insect tide, Kanyang City became a dead city overnight. The betrayal also came true. Amorendi was betrayed by Yu Meng and the imperial family. In an instant, he became old and withered, and was about to die. But fall did not come true for Amorendi. Yu Meng also said that she had no intention of killing Amorendi from the beginning. She just wanted to use this method to force Amorendi to retire, and then wait for death in a nursing home with peace of mind. Although what Yu Meng said may not be credible, in the end, Amorendi did not die. If Gu Tianqing's divination is indeed traceable, the first 2 cards will come true, but who will this fall come true for? When Yilin faced the 4 emperors, he accidentally remembered Gu Tianqing's unfulfilled divination, and combined with the danger he was in, a bold idea flashed through Yilin's mind. The one who falls, will be the emperor. In this way, Gu Tianqing's divination will be complete. Gu Tianqing should be blamed. It's all his fault. Moreover, even if Yilin is not sure, he can get the item from the emperor that can restore Amorendi's youth. But if she doesn't give it a try, Yilin will always feel unwilling. No matter what, Yilin couldn't just watch Amorendi die of old age in such a shameless and aggrieved way. From the beginning, Yilin created an illusion, creating an illusion that was bound to kill Yulixin. So most of his beatings were aimed at Yuli's heart. For the 4 emperors Yingxia, Yulixin, Zhao Taiqian, and Emperor Zhu Chong, this was also reasonable and reasonable. What is the correct way to open yourself up when being attacked by a group? Very simple. Grab one of them and hit him. Fight to death, fight desperately. Exchange the limit for 1, no loss. Over time, even Yulixin himself came to the conclusion that Yilin was specifically targeting him in this unethical beating, which frightened the arrogant Yulixin. But in fact, what Yilin really wanted to kill, was Emperor Zhu Chong. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 484. If one of the 4 of them really has a prop in his warehouse that can restore Amorendi's youth, then it is most likely that it is in Emperor Zhu Chong's warehouse. Although Yilin was gambling, he had to say that in the end, he was right. Being able to kill Emperor Zhu Chong with 1 shot and explode the ginseng fruit mass production type, one of the abilities and 1 prop are indispensable. One is the supercharged use method of charged bullet that Yilin has never had time to use on the spirit enchanted weapon. But what Yilin didn't expect was that he originally only planned to accumulate 10 layers and have a 100% understanding of his heart rate, and that would be it. After all, anything like probability is just a cloud as long as it is less than 100%. But what Yilin didn't expect was that when he reached 10 levels of energy, he could actually continue to accumulate it. It turns out that the stored supercharged bullet has no limit. In order to ensure that Emperor Zhu Chong could be killed instantly with 1 shot without triggering Emperor Zhu Chong's life-saving items or giving Emperor Zhu Chong no chance to use his life-saving items, Yilin accumulated most of his spiritual energy in that supercharged bullet. If Emperor Zhu Chong could be smarter, he might be able to discover it. From a certain period of time, Yilin's destruction revolver has been held in his hand, holding back his ultimate move without saying a word, and has never left Yilin's hand. Yilin consumed thousands of spiritual energy points and accumulated 22 layers of supercharged bullets. The probability and power of supercharged bullets and knowing blow at level 22 have reached a terrifying level of 220%. Coupled with the effect of his epic title spell power at 50%. Just imagining the magnificence of that shot made even Yulin feel scared. There is another reason for choosing Emperor Zuchong as the target to fulfill the Gu Tianqing divination. His moves are so flashy and dazzling. Yilin's luck value is not too high. Even if Emperor Zuchong is killed, he probably won't be able to find anything good. Therefore, Yulin tried her best to get the props she wanted from Emperor Zuchong's box, unless Emperor Zuchong's luck value was lower than hers. There is only one way. The Lancer's Blessing. Yulin used Alan's collection of paintings firstly to cover up the full moon night created by the scene card, which greatly reduced Zhao Taiqian's strength. The second is to create a real and fake effect in the illusion and confuse the sight of the four emperors. The purpose of San was to secretly use Lancer's Blessing on Emperor Zuchong while firing 6 charged bullets with the Redemption Revolver. In the rapidly changing situation, Zhu Congdi's dazzling moves were enough to cover up the special effects of the Big E. Coupled with the illusion bonus, Emperor Zuchong thought that it was not surprising that anything appeared, it might be fake, and he would not take it seriously even if it was just an E. It was not uncomfortable anyway. At the end of all this planning, is the human heart. Yulin took advantage of the complex relationship between the four emperors, which seemed to be monolithic but full of gaps. When Yulin used the pacemaker to withstand Emperor Zuchong's punch, Yulin discovered that Yulixin noticed the E on Emperor Zuchong's head. But when Yulin raised a finger, whether Yulixin understood Yulin's true meaning or not, Yulixin still hesitated in the end. He did not remind Emperor Zuchong. But even if he warned him verbally, according to Yulin's speculation, Emperor Zuchong would risk giving himself a fatal blow just to touch the fragrant Yulin box. Because Yulin was indeed not far from death at that time. It was impossible for Emperor Zuchong not to take the bait. At that last moment, it no longer mattered whether Zhao Taiqian and Yingxia noticed the special effects above Zhu Congdi's head, or whether they gave a verbal reminder. At that time, Yulin's killing move had been fully charged, and Emperor Zuchong's luck had also dropped to a certain level. Yulin always had to find a way to get rid of this bullet. These layers of planning made Emperor Zuchong's death inevitable. In the short 210 seconds that the bloodthirsty disaster lasted, Yulin walked among the four emperors, making full use of their pride, gaps, selfishness, fear of death, greed, and hesitation. This is the truest human heart. In a hurry, there is no time to think or cover up. This is the truest expression of the complex human heart. To be able to do this, Yulin tried her best. With the bloodthirsty disaster activated, no matter if he faced any of them, Yulin could completely crush them in his current state. But in a 1-on-4 situation, the upper limit of the spiritual power that Yulin forcibly lifted up with bloodthirsty disaster seemed a little stretched. This is what humans are. There was silence for 10 seconds. There was no movement in the thick gray mist of the illusion. Yingxia's expression was slightly cold, and he stepped into the fog with one sword and one person. Yulixin and Zhao Taiqian stopped talking. But it didn't stop Yingxia from making this bold move. The pace of winning summer seems to be very slow and cautious. But after a few breaths, he came to the headless body of Emperor Zuchong. The arteries where Emperor Zuchong was bleeding no longer had any blood flowing out. Emperor Zuchong, who had lost his head, still kept kneeling on the ground, motionless, like a tombstone fixed here. Another moment passed. Yulixin and Zhao Taiqian opened the communication panel repeatedly, and after confirming that Yingxia's name was still online, they quickly came to Yingxia's side. The sudden death of an extraordinary close combat apostle, an emperor who cultivated the Ming dynasty's true dragon qi, really frightened Yulixin and Zhao Taiqian. Emperor Zuchong's death was so sudden and strange that no one was mentally prepared. As a result, under the agitation of their hearts, they had been in high positions of royal power for a long time, and for the first time, they had the idea of fearing the second person besides Emorendi. Fear, once it appears, is like a tarsal bone and is indelible for a while. When Ulixin and Zhao Taiqian looked at the tragic death of Emperor Zuchong's headless body, they both opened their mouths in shock. An emperor fell like this. Still in this way. He even died without leaving a complete body. Even if they are buried, they still don't know who this is. Later, Ulixin and Zhao Taiqian looked directly at the headless corpse and felt their hands and feet were cold. They were glad that they were not the ones chasing into the thick fog not long ago. Suddenly, Zhao Taiqian reacted and said in surprise, "Molly and the others." Late. Yingxia said indifferently, his eyes never leaving the headless corpse of Emperor Zuchong, his expression unclear as to whether he was happy or sad. Late. Somewhere in the thick fog, a ray of light rose into the sky. Ulixin and Zhao Taiqian were shocked and looked at the direction of the light at the same time. At this time, they may not understand how Emperor Zuchong died. But they discovered one thing. It turned out that the illusory space released by Yilin could also prevent them from pursuing. Under the cover of thick fog, there were twisted monster illusions all around. They were not on the spiritual side and could not tell the direction in the illusion. If Yilin wants to run away, they can't stop her. When the fierce battle was in full swing, both Yingxia and others had forgotten their original intention of joining forces to surround and kill Yilin, which was to prevent Yilin from escaping. But they kept killing, because Yilin showed such obvious murderous intention towards Ulixin that Yingxia and the other four forgot about it without even realizing it. If this was all part of that guy's plan. Too insidious. Zhao Taiqian's face turned dark instantly as he looked at the fleeting light. No, we must not let him escape easily like this. We must issue a wanted notice in the shortest possible time, and no matter where he runs, we must find him. Ulixin roared hoarsely when he thought of Yilin's elusive ability. Yingxia shook her head. Looking at the headless corpse in front of him, he felt a bit of sadness in his heart for no reason. Yingxia looked at the kneeling body of Emperor Zuchong and said softly, "The most important thing now is not how to hunt him down. It is how to deal with the aftermath of all this." Yes. How to deal with the aftermath? Emperor Zuchong died. For the superstructure of this country, this is undoubtedly the most terrifying earthquake in this decade. At the same time, Himalayas. This place has been frozen for thousands of years, and the continuous mountains are all white. All around, there was only the sound of wind and snow, and the vast expanse of pure white, forming a cold and lonely world. The sky is dark. The biting snowstorm was as sharp as a knife. Suddenly, beside a certain canyon, 20 meters above a snowfield, flowing lines were quickly outlined and took shape in the blink of an eye. After the light flashed, figures appeared one after another. Hoo-ho-ho dash. The moment they appeared, the sudden blizzard choked them so hard that they couldn't even speak. It's dead. It's over, hey ba woo woo woo, there is an error in the pod. There is indeed an error in altitude. When Molly took the transportation array Super Light Express and reappeared in the snow-capped mountains, that the sudden feeling of weightlessness made her subconsciously look down. For a moment, he couldn't care less about the terrifying sub-zero low temperature and exclaimed in the wind and snow. Hey hey hey. Pangenji casually picked up Emorendi, whose lips were turning purple from the cold, carried him behind him, and dropped him to the ground. Yilin was already exhausted. After he activated the teleportation at the designated place at the right time, he just said 2 words. The effect of the bloodthirsty disaster skill disappeared, and the terrible side effects surged, making Yilin unconscious in an instant. Go over and fall straight from mid-air to the ground. Cold. Oda Mai's eyes flashed, her eyes quick and her hands quick, she grabbed Yilin in mid-air with her remaining hand. At the moment when she exerted her strength, a look of pain appeared on Mai Oda's face, but she still gritted her teeth, carried the unconscious Yilin on her shoulders, and fell to the ground. The dog's tail swung in a spiral and took off on the spot. Before Molly and Ling Yi fell to the ground from mid-air, he quickly grabbed Molly's clothes with his mouth, lifted Ling Yi from behind, and landed safely. Snapped. Although Lao Pan caught Emo Rendi, he didn't seem to have the concept of safe landing. There was only a muffled sound, and Lao Pan hit his head on the ground, grabbed the ground with his head, and buried his head into the thick snow. Fortunately, Lao Pan's body acted as a cushion for Emo Rendi. After Emo Rendi let out a groan, the violent shock made him feel a little uncomfortable, but overall it was not a serious problem. If you have high luck, you can do whatever you want. Even if it's something like landing on your head, it's so easy to do. Call. Landed without incident. Molly looked at her surroundings with lingering fear. When she learned in advance that Yilin planned to transfer everyone to the snowy mountain area on the border, after Molly constructed a fixed-point teleportation spell, she used the fastest speed to find all the cotton-padded jackets that could be worn and let a few people wear it on your body to protect yourself from the low temperatures in the snowy mountains. But this equipment is still too naive for the severe cold and harsh environment of the snowfields of the Himalayas. After a few seconds of wind and snow after landing, Molly shivered all over. She felt that in just a few seconds, the heat in her body was rapidly lost, and her face, limbs, ears, and other exposed parts lost consciousness. Quick, he's going to die. After landing with the unconscious Yiren on her shoulders, Oda Mai spoke loudly and very fast. At this moment, her face, which had always been indifferent to emotion and anger, showed a rare hint of human anxiety. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 485. As the light fades, the roaming weapon covering the surface of Yilin's body turned into red and white light and disappeared. The translucent figures of Bai Xiaoai and Nai Hongxiu flashed behind Yilin and disappeared without a trace. He can't even maintain his spirit anymore. Oda Mai's expression darkened. It wasn't until Yilin's roaming weapon disappeared that Molly could see clearly how badly Yilin was injured. But she didn't cry. Hold it back. Because Molly knew very well that if she cried in such a harsh cold environment, her eyes would be instantly blinded by frozen tears. Oda Mai used her thin body to carry Yilin and walked in the snow with 1 foot deep and 1 foot shallow. A fierce snowstorm hit a group of people, covering several people with a thick layer of snow. Sister Yi, are you okay? Ling Yi knew that Yilin was seriously injured and had a worried look on her face. But after hearing this, Ling Yi exhaled a long column of white mist and forced out a smile. Don't worry, I'm fine. It's not as cold here as I thought. Woof. Wang Tiandi took the initiative to hand the dog leash around his neck into Ling Yi's hands to guide him. Suddenly, Wang Tiandi raised his head and barked in a certain direction. 100 meters away. In the undulating snow hills, several people saw a metal door buried in the wind and snow from a distance, with a corner exposed, faintly reflecting the light of the metal. As they walked, Ling Yi suddenly frowned, raised her chin slightly, and looked into the depths of the wind and snow, gazing in the direction of one of the snowy mountains, with a fleeting doubt appearing on her face. When Yiren wakes up, lying on the soft quilt. Although the quilt on her body had a faint musty smell and moisture that had not yet dispersed, Yilin did feel very comfortable when she woke up. Here it is. Memories came like a flood. In the shortest possible time, Yilin remembered everything that happened before she fell into coma. Successful. Yilin breathed a sigh of relief. But when Yilin was about to use her senses to check her surroundings as usual, she felt a sharp pain between her eyebrows just as she thought about it. The sharp pain wreaked havoc in the skull, making Yilin feel like she was undergoing a craniotomy while she was awake. Well, he was the one who had his head opened. Has your spiritual energy been depleted? Yilin shook her head helplessly. In order to get the item from Emperor Zhuchang that could restore Emo Ren's youth, Yilin's battle in the capital was full of tricks. When Yilin used his last spiritual energy to use his last skill Shadow Kill and turned into a shadow and returned to Molly, Ling Yi, and others, he really didn't have a drop left. As a result, after the fixed point teleportation spell was successfully activated, the effect of Yilin's bloodthirsty disaster disappeared, and the terrible side effect made Yilin unconscious in an instant. Every time after using bloodthirsty catastrophe, a big move that damages the enemy by 10,000 and damages himself by 800, Yilin always feels a little scared. Yilin quickly opened the Apostle panel to see the current status. Yilin, ID, 1010. Title Shadow Warlock, Epic Level. Health 31.3%. Psychic Value 213/2040. Module Apocalypse Knight, Damaged. Essence Unknown Hybrid, 22.4% Unknown Ancestry, 77.6% Carbon-based Homo sapiens. Level LV 25, 3rd level Apostle. Strength 4.2. Agility 5.2. Spirit 1 3.6. Will 8.2. Lucky 2.5. Charm 1.3. Skills follow like a shadow, max, haunted by disaster, max, bloodthirsty disaster, 3 stars, summon the Mount Night Dire, 1 star, grasp of annihilation, 2 stars, shadow kill, 1 star, banish, title skill. Enhanced killing technique, A level, yin yang hands, B end level, echo of doom, S end level, crystal pattern technique, S level. It's full of blood. Yilin noticed at first glance that her health was only 31.3%. In other words, he is currently suffering from severe trauma, a trauma that even the inhuman blood in his body cannot repair for a while. Speaking of bloodline, Yilin is a little strange. Why have the ingredients in the mix changed? It seems that there are more ingredients of unknown bloodlines. In other words, he is less human. This strange change made Yilin lie on the bed, a little dumbfounded. Is it possible to say that this is the type that gets stronger every time he is close to death? Yilin suddenly had a bold idea. The battle in the capital completely depleted Yilin's spiritual energy. After the spiritual energy is exhausted, it will go through a recovery process, which Yilin is not too worried about. The mental attributes skyrocketed again. After taking the forbidden fruit of wisdom, Yilin's spiritual attributes broke through the first spiritual lock without any hindrance and reached the extraordinary. That little apple increased Yilin's mental attributes by nearly 4 points, and the effect was terrifying. But in fact, Yilin knew very well that if his spiritual lock hadn't been loosened long ago, forbidden fruit of wisdom would never have such a terrifying amplifying effect. Yilin checked the storage space again. For now, he can't die. Yilin has nothing to worry about. Just when Yilin wanted to sit up from the bed, she found that her body was not moving smoothly. Only then did Yilin realize that he was wrapped in thick bandages like a mummy. Who did it? Woof. Shortly after Yilin woke up, Wang Tiandi, with his sensitive ears, knocked on the door and walked in. His furry tail was swung into a spiral shape and his expression was joyful. So you were the one guarding me. Yilin smiled and touched Wang Tiandi's dog's head, feeling a faint warmth surge in her heart. Wang Guo. Unexpectedly, Goza slapped Yilin's bandaged mummy hand with his paw, twisted his mouth, smiled evilly, made a bone shape on Yilin with his paw, and then stared with 2 green dog eyes. He looked at Yilin, breathing heavily. The warmth that just surged in my heart disappeared in an instant. Yilin expressionlessly took out a meat bone from the storage space and threw it at her feet. Woof woo woo. Emperor Wang Tian happily picked up the meat and bones and left. Roll. You are really a dog. Shortly after Wang Tiandi bit his bones and left, Molly and Ling Yi walked in. You finally woke up. Molly's eyes immediately turned red, but she laughed to hide the fatigue in her brows. She held a steaming bowl in her hand. The bowl was filled with gruel, all white and without any oil or water. Eat something. Molly carefully handed the gruel to Yilin's mouth. How long have I been asleep? A mouthful of warm porridge made Yilin's limbs feel much warmer, and the pain between his brows seemed to have faded away a bit. You slept for 4 days. Ling Yi replied with a smile. 4 days. The side effects lasted 2 days longer than the bloodthirsty catastrophe. It seemed that the sequelae of the depletion of spiritual energy this time were very serious. Seeing that Yilin's expression remained normal, Molly finally relaxed after 4 days of thinking. It's all over. Where's Rendi? Grandpa, he. Molly bit her lower lip and hesitated to speak. Yilin's eyes were focused, and she drank the bowl of porridge that Molly sent as quickly as possible, without leaving any drop. Let's go, take me to find him. Yilin staggered, and with the help of Molly, she came to Rendi's room. In fact, Yilin didn't have any arms or legs, so she didn't need support. But Molly said that Yilin had just recovered from a serious injury and had to go through a formality. Yilin had no choice but to let her go. Looking at Molly's bloodshot eyes, Yilin could probably imagine how anxious Molly had been spending the past few days. Dogs don't understand human language and can't communicate. Lao Pan is neurotic and unreliable. Ling Yi couldn't see. Oda Mai even broke an arm and was also a wounded person. As for Ren enemy, it can be said that the 4 days when Yilin was in a coma, in this unfamiliar environment, were the darkest, hesitant, and helpless moments that Molly had ever experienced in her life. She was not an apostle, and she didn't know how to wake up Yilin, so she could only watch silently. On the way to find Rendi, Molly briefly talked about the past few days. 4 days ago, they landed in the vast snow-capped mountains. Although the set coordinates deviated from expectations, Molly still successfully found this abandoned snow mountain shelter. What makes Molly feel strange is that the backup power system of this shelter that has been abandoned for many years is still operating. With his incredible luck, Old Pen confused the password and several people successfully entered the shelter. In the shelter, the facilities inside were in shambles, but the heating system, emergency power supply, air cleaning system, fresh water purification and other life support systems were still functioning normally. While Yilin was in coma, Molly used the shortest time to settle them down separately. As for food, it's hard to describe. Store grain in a sealed container and there won't be much leftover grain. There were only some sealed rice, flour, and some air-dried meat that was so frozen that even Emperor Wang Tiandi would twist his head and leave. Although the environment is harsh, for the time being, they are safe. For the past few days, it has been a severe blizzard outside the shelter. Molly and others did not dare to leave the shelter, so they stayed in the shelter until Yilin woke up. Don't worry, I have my own plan. After Yilin understood the situation clearly, she smiled and patted Molly's slightly trembling shoulder with her mummy hand, comforting her. Molly nodded vigorously and smiled. Correct. After Yilin finished comforting her, she finally couldn't help but ask, there's one thing I don't know whether to ask or not, who made me mummy like this? It's so ugly. The smile on Molly's face froze instantly, and her little face darkened suddenly. In the closed room, Rendi lay quietly on the metal bed, covered with several layers of thick quilts. The surface of the white quilt had already turned yellow and was dirty. It was obviously supplies that had been temporarily rummaged through in the shelter. Rendi was lying on the bed with his eyes closed tightly, his eyebrows knitted together, and his face covered with an adult oxygen mask. Beside the bed, there are several basic vital sign monitoring instruments, which display the simplest and most basic medical values such as blood pressure, blood oxygen saturation, heart rate, pulse, and respiration. Looking at Rendi, Molly lowered her head and tried to make her voice calmer. Grandpa's situation is not ideal. The altitude here is too high. It has exceeded the height of the forbidden air zone in the plains, and the air is thin. Grandpa has been suffering from high fever in the past few days, and has suffered from severe altitude sickness. Oxygen is very serious. It is very possible. Molly could no longer say the next words, and was a little choked up. Yilin nodded and walked in without saying anything. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 486. When Yilin walked into the room, Amorendi slowly opened his eyes. Those eyes were cloudy and out of focus. It is you. It's me. Yilin responded and sat down on the air. Through the glass window, Molly's eyes widened. There is obviously nothing under Yilin's butt, so he is sitting on air? This is my answer. Amorendi suddenly said something strange. What's the meaning? Yilin was stunned. Is Amorendi so sick that he becomes delirious? Beep beep beep. The monitoring equipment next to the bed started to alarm. Amorendi's heart rate suddenly soared to over 100 beats/minute. The old man, who was breathless on the bed, took a few labored breaths and rested for half a minute before the alarm stopped. Meng, from now on, I'll leave it to you. Ah. Yilin shook his head, smiled, and took out a card from the storage space. Ginseng fruit mass production type. Grade rare. Effect click to view details. Explanation: according to legend, ginseng fruit blooms once every 3,000 years, bears fruit once every 3,000 years, takes another 3,000 years to mature, and only takes 10,000 years before it can be eaten. After the source genetic modification technology matures, the mass-produced type produced in the greenhouse has a mythical efficacy of 7.5%. It specializes in treating various cardiovascular and cerebrovascular diseases in the elderly, bringing new gospel to the elderly suffering from diseases. This is the prop Yilin worked hard to find out from the relic box of Emperor Zuchong. Because Yilin's luck attribute was too low, he even spent his last Lancer's blessing on Emperor Zuchong. Although how lucky you are when touching the box, there are some metaphysical factors involved. But Yilin himself is the biggest victim of the mystery of luck, and he is frightened by this luck. Only if the opponent's luck is worse than yours can you draw good things. In fact, if Yilin had not been surrounded by 4 emperors at that time and it was very difficult for Yilin to deal with it, he would have even wanted Lao Pan to take Emperor Zuchong's head. With Lao Pan's terrifying luck value, he might be able to cause a big explosion to Emperor Zuchong with one strike. After crushing the card, in Yilin's hand, a doll-shaped fruit appeared, which looked somewhat similar to a baby. The surface of the fruit is shiny and appears to be rich in water and various vitamins. You old guy, don't even think about quitting your work. It's early. Yilin chuckled softly. After saying this, he stopped talking nonsense and directly opened Amorendi's oxygen mask and stuffed the ginseng fruit into Amorendi's mouth. Amorendi's limbs suddenly spasmed. Beep beep beep. All the instruments alarmed wildly, flashing red lights. When Molly saw something was wrong with Amorendi's state, she rolled her eyes, thinking that her grandfather was about to die, so she burst in with tears streaming down her face. Ouch, Grandpa! Ginseng fruit mass-produced type. After being stuffed into Amorendi's mouth, it melted in the blink of an eye, leaving no core behind. Yilin looked at Amorendi's expression of enjoyment with foaming at the mouth and rolled eyes on the hospital bed, and subconsciously swallowed a mouthful of saliva, secretly thinking it was a pity. I don't know what the ginseng fruit tastes like. Speaking of which, the forbidden fruit of wisdom tastes very good, making Yilin want to eat a second one. Molly lay beside the bed and cried for 5 minutes. Amorendi also twitched on the bed for 5 minutes. Amorendi smoked and smoked, and Yilin got used to it. While waiting, he took the time to browse the forum. Yilin secretly gathered 2 invisible little bowls to catch Molly's tears. Yilin didn't dare to say that this prop would be useful to Amorendi, after all, he had never eaten it. Therefore, Yulin did not comfort Molly before the fruit took effect. If it doesn't work, Amorendi is really gone, and it saves Molly from having to cry a second time because of her emotions. After a while, Amoren is invincible. Molly was dumbfounded. "Grandpa, Grandpa." Suddenly Molly cried louder. But before Molly could pull the white sheet over her face and announce her death, Amorendi suddenly sat up straight. Ah! The moment Amorendi sat up, the electrode pads attached to his body were pulled to the ground. Molly stared at the energetic Amorendi with a confused look on her face. Amorendi's spirit improved a lot. While gently stroking Molly's hair, he turned his head, looking at Yulin with an expression that was 3 parts grateful and 1 part vigilant, and said, "My sweet granddaughter is Meng Meng, so I won't bother you, kid. This is very invincible." A few days later, the snow stopped. The sky is as clear as a mirror and as blue as washing. A vast expanse as far as the eye can see. Yulin was suspended in the sky outside the shelter, standing proudly. Suddenly, I saw Yulin reaching out to somewhere in the snow field, and a piece of snow about 2x2x2 cubic meters was dug out of thin air. The crystal clear ice crystals reflected the colorful light in the sun. Ding 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 ding. Yulin quickly moved her fingers through the air, her hand speed was astonishing. And from the cube of ice crystals that was slowly rotating in front of Yulin, pieces of ice were peeled off and floated into the air. In the blink of an eye, Yulin used this method to decompose the 8 cubic meters of ice into countless fine snows, which fell from the sky. "It's time to eat." At this time, laugh. As the hydraulic metal door opened to both sides, Molly walked out of the shelter wrapped in a small cotton jacket and happened to witness the end of Yulin's artificial snowmaking. Snowflakes were falling in front of Molly. Each snowflake was crystal clear, like a mirror of 10,000 flowers. The 7-colored light in the sky made Yulin in the air look like a god. This scene made Molly dumbfounded. So beautiful. One of the snowflakes floated in front of Molly, and Molly subconsciously reached out to catch it. The snowflake was actually carved by Yulin into an exquisite flower shape, and the petals rotated and fell. "What are you doing?" "Exercise ability." Yulin smiled slightly and landed in front of Molly. "Are you almost recovered?" "Well, it's nothing serious." After resting for a few days, Yulin finally recovered from the state of depleted spiritual energy. "You're becoming less and less human now." After a while, Molly suppressed a sigh. "Oh, by the way, now you can fly in the sky without relying on any tools. Can you cross the forbidden air zone?" At this time, this was what Molly was thinking about. Forbidden air zone. Yulin's eyes flickered slightly. As expected, Molly is still thinking about this matter. Are you really worthy of being a scientific researcher? In fact, there is one thing that Yulin has always known. However, he never mentioned it in front of Molly. Because, talking about this matter, it can be regarded as a sore point for Molly. When Molly debuted as the youngest scientific researcher, the 4 towers arrived. In order to reduce people's panic, the 5 major families of the Z5 Council handed a fabricated data to Molly and asked her to publish the paper in the authoritative impurity in the name of Molly, the emerging tower researcher. The youngest scientific researcher in history, in that era when traffic was king, could be said to be a hotly searched selling point in the blink of an eye. Under the manipulation of some thoughtful people, Molly and her paper were spread. If we really wanted to dig deeper, how could it be possible for Molly to go deep into no man's land and obtain such complicated data at her age at that time? It doesn't make sense at all. However, the Z5 Council used various means to block information and suppress public opinion. Over time, Molly's paper seemed to become a fact. All ordinary people think that the so-called forbidden air zone is due to the influence of the chaotic magnetic field, which prevents current air vehicles from flying at altitudes above 3,000 meters. But after Molly later learned the truth, She made a big fuss, but in the end it was settled. Molly was so angry that she never touched the tower-related research again. As for the time in Cheng, it was most likely that Molly made an exception to participate in the research operation in order to find a reason to meet Yulin. At this point, it's time to let Molly know this part of the truth. Want to touch the sky? Yulin smiled. Touch the sky? Molly's expression was slightly stunned, and the snowflakes carved by Yulin quietly melted in her palms. Yeah, touch it. Yulin smiled and pointed upward. Molly thought Yulin was using a metaphorical sentence and didn't think much about it. She nodded vigorously, her little face flushed with excitement. Yeah. Go. Hold on. Yulin put an arm around Molly's waist and lifted into the air. Hoo. The air is fresh, but freezing cold. Yulin flew very fast, reaching an altitude of over 5,000 meters, and the air was thin. Taking off from here, we reached the height of the Forbidden Air Zone, which was close to the altitude of the top of Mount Everest. If we stayed for too long, Molly would definitely not be able to bear it with her ordinary physique. Although Yulin was able to create a thin layer of armor on Molly's surface to resist the cold wind and severe cold. But Yulin cannot create oxygen out of thin air. This is not something humans can do. A few minutes later, Yulin took Molly and stayed in mid-air. The air here is so thin that the body can feel discomfort. Although Molly stood high in the sky with a mortal body, Yulin deliberately pinched a platform under Molly's feet in order not to frighten her, giving her the feeling of stepping on the ground. Sure enough, Molly was still clinging to Yulin's clothes at first, but after a while, Molly got used to the feeling of taking off on the spot, her breathing became smoother, and she became silent. When Yulin stopped, Molly took a deep breath and whispered, "Arrived. Arrive. Come on, reach out and touch it." Touch. Molly looked confused, but she noticed that Yulin's expression didn't look like he was joking, so she cautiously reached out her hand and touched diagonally upward. In an instant, Molly's expression changed drastically. Her hand touched something. The binding is hard. This is impossible. Molly's face was shocked and her eyes were full of disbelief. She touched it. She actually touched the sky. Knock. Molly even gave it a few hard knocks. So hard. It's you. Molly couldn't believe that this forbidden air zone, which had troubled countless scientists, was actually such a thing. She thought it was Yulin who was acting weird with her power and was joking. Suddenly her eyes glanced at Yulin in confusion, waiting for an explanation. Yulin shook his head and smiled helplessly. "It's none of my business, this is the truth. The Forbidden Air Zone belongs to the forbidden area of gods. Ordinary people think that this is a phenomenon that can be explained by science. But in fact, only we understand that this is not actually science. This phenomenon already belongs to the category of theology. Humans, locked up. This world is actually a cage, a huge cage." Suddenly. Right now. As soon as Yulin finished speaking, she frowned, raised her head, and looked into no man's sky. That place was beyond his reach, beyond his reach. But somehow, being so close to the forbidden air zone, he seemed to feel that there was a strange and heartbreaking sight, staring directly at him and Molly. That line of sight. Yulin had the illusion that she was stripping off and washing the food on the plate. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 487. You mean, the Z5 Council has actually known about it for a long time? Otherwise, do you think that 10 years ago, when the restricted air zone first appeared, would anyone have tried to hit it on the head with a helicopter? Molly suddenly remembered. When I was a child, I did hear my grandfather mention that there were many plane crashes, which were not uncommon. Later, a law banning high-altitude civil aviation vehicles was promulgated. Over time, it will be gone. With the construction of the ground network, high-altitude vehicles have gradually faded out of the stage of human history. So this is the forbidden air zone. After learning the truth, compared to theories such as magnetic field chaos and high-altitude turbulence, this simple and crude physical forbidden space that isolates everything made Molly feel boring. There is no technical content at all. This unscientific. Yes, this is not an area that science can explain. Yilin did not dare to stay in front of the restricted area for too long. After letting Molly touch the sky, Yilin took Molly and landed on the ground again. That cold and strange sight quickly disappeared, like an illusion. But Yilin's mental attributes at this moment have already exceeded the limits of human beings. Illusion. It shouldn't exist. Yilin believed even more that there must be something on the other side of the forbidden air zone. The restricted air zone is like a one-way glass that covers the entire world. When Yilin thinks about the possibility that there are some beings on the other side of the one-way glass who are peering into the world in this way, sex is terrifying to think about. After returning to the shelter, Yilin and Molly each had their own concerns. Amorendi was wearing a thick cotton-padded jacket and sitting on a bench. His face looked much better now than when he was dying a few days ago. This room should have been used as a staff canteen in the past. The four metal walls give off a refreshing chill. Even the long rows of tables and chairs in the style of a large canteen are made of metal. They are durable and become smoother with each passing day. After returning to the shelter and arriving at the cafeteria, Molly, who was worried, ran to do some work. Although Molly is not good at cooking, she throws clean water and rice into a pot and cooks it into porridge in one pot. This cooking method has nothing to do with cooking, and she is still not tossing out any outrageous dark dishes. How's your recovery going? Yilin sat next to Amorendi, face to face with Oda Wu and Ling Yi. Old Pan, who had returned to his Pangenji personality, was squatting next to Wang Tiandi, drooling, staring straight at the bones on Wang Tiandi's plate, ready to move. Guza noticed something was wrong in the atmosphere. It cleverly picked up the bones and left the canteen with a bang, and ran away before talking. We must not let this lunatic take away its remaining rations. A piece had been stolen 2 days ago, but it made Wang Tiandi so angry that he had difficulty urinating and defecating and had endocrine disorders. Amorendi smiled slightly. It's okay, but my blood pressure is still a bit high. Old man's disease. Perhaps even Amorendi did not expect that one day he, the invincible man, would have to battle wits and courage with all kinds of old people's diseases. It seems that the fruit cannot completely offset the effect of the aging potion. Yilin whispered something in Amorendi's ear. It doesn't matter. Amoren looked very calm when he was defeated. The old god was waiting on the ground for Molly to bring the porridge, and said with a smile, "Next, it will be the era of you young people." When Molly brought the hot porridge, Yilin and Amorendi ended the topic with a tacit understanding. Because Yilin didn't explain to Emoli what he gave Amorendi to eat at that time. After jumping up from the bed, Amorendi did not show any discomfort in front of Molly. Apart from being out of breath after walking 2 steps, there was no other serious problem. So that Molly naively thought that Amorendi had been cured and no longer worried. But only Yilin knows how different Amorendi is now from Amorendi before the betrayal. When Amorendi instantly killed the insect king Amode with one punch, he was an extraordinary human being who had broken through the lock. No matter his age, he would never be so weak that he could only take a few minutes to catch his breath after walking 2 steps. Oda Mai didn't dare to use the knife these days. Her injuries were too severe. Unlike Yilin, Oda Mai does not have the ability to self-heal. The broken arm can only be repaired by spending death points the next time you enter the trial. The incident in Kanyang City caused an uproar in the real world. Although there is no internet in the snowy mountains, Yilin can roughly understand the trends of the outside world through the Apostle Forum. The Kanyang City incident was finally explained to the outside world as a parasite disaster. It is said that after the rescue team arrived in Kanyang City, they found about 3,000 survivors. But these survivors are strictly protected. This incident even spread abroad. But for some reason, the international media unanimously remained silent on this disaster and did not make any sound. There are some small domestic media outlets that just raised questions and were suppressed in a short period of time. The next day, the media company that raised the question was completely deserted. And the commotion Yilin made in the capital before leaving also left a lot of turmoil. After all, it was broad daylight at that time, and a laboratory standing in the suburbs was bombarded into ruins, which could never be hidden from the eyes of the relevant media. But no matter what, as long as it is public opinion, there are ways to completely suppress it. As long as the Z5 Council is willing, it can even completely isolate network intelligence and curb the flow of intelligence as much as possible. This is perhaps the most obvious benefit of managing the network area block. Correct. It is now the Z4 Council. Dinner is over. Yilin brought the members of the shelter together for the first time. This is a place similar to a meeting room. Generally speaking, the Snow Mountain shelter has all the supporting facilities. Under Yilin's instruction, the dog bit Lao Pan's clothes and forcibly dragged Lao Pan over, who was hiding on the third floor underground and playing with sticks. Superior. Yilin gave an order. Amorendi stepped forward slowly, raised his hand, and cut Lao Pan's neck cleanly with his knife. Pangenji raised his head with contempt on his face, humans with fish lips. Amorendi. Oda Wu sighed, stepped forward quickly, and knocked Pangenji unconscious with the handle of the knife. Mistake, mistake. Amorendi smiled awkwardly. Shortly after Pangenji fell, Pan Xiaozheng went online. He picked up Harley Quinn's best friend without saying a word. Seeing that Oda Mai seemed to want to do it again, Pan Xiaozheng took a few steps back quickly, with a vigilant look on his face. Wait a minute. Don't smash it. That guy said that he didn't have time to go online and all matters were decided by me. Oda Mai looked at Yilin silently. Yilin thought for a while, looked embarrassed, and finally said reluctantly, okay, let's take him. Pan Xiaozheng rubbed the back of his sore neck, and when he saw Oda Mai put away the knife, he breathed a sigh of relief and sat aside. Except for Ling Yi, everyone was finally here. Molly, Yilin, Pan Xiaozheng, Wang Tiandi, Oda Wu, Amorendi. Yilin's eyes swept across several people's faces. There was a long silence. First of all, thank you. Everyone was stunned. Molly, huh? Pan Xiaozheng, what personality do you have? Wang Tiandi, Wang Wu, it stretched out its front paws and asked for bones. Oda Mai looked away. Amorendi was stunned for a moment, then smiled. His smile was meaningful. Yilin did not answer the questions of other people and dogs one by one. But I finally said thank you. Perhaps only he can understand its meaning. Although reaching this point is somewhat forced by the situation, it is indeed within the original plan to attract one's own power before the troubled times come. However, Yilin was still very weak at that time and could only rely on the special team to act temporarily. But after he killed Emperor Zuchong in full public view, reaching this point became inevitable. In the next period of time, this place will become my stronghold. I have what I want to do and my purpose. With all due respect, there are many things that I cannot tell you clearly for the time being. In short, if nothing unexpected happens, I am already wanted. At this time, Amorendi interrupted, just beat him to death. Molly covered her eyes speechlessly. Yilin nodded calmly and agreed, actually, I had this thought 2 days ago, but now it seems that it is not the most important thing. Forget it, let's put this matter aside for the time being. Let me talk first. Put it in front. After a pause, Yilin's eyes narrowed and he continued, I can't stop their next plan, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. This will be an era of great waves, and the strong will stay, and the weak will be eliminated. Although there I don't completely agree with the approach, but natural selection, after screening, may not be a bad thing. I will establish my own power here. Yilin took a deep breath. I will not force anyone to join. My purpose of taking root here is not for stupid reasons such as fighting for world hegemony. I just want to survive in the coming disaster and chaos, and live better than anyone else, that's all. Whether you go or stay, it's up to you. In front of Yilin, the 5 people did not remain silent for long. Pan Xiaozheng looked melancholy and played with the stick in his hand carefully. I guess I am already on the list. Unless I run into the mountains, otherwise I will be arrested as soon as I appear under the camera. Now that I have boarded the pirate ship, there's nothing more to say. Amorendi stroked his beard and said with a smile, when I climbed Mount Everest, I met an old friend. He said that the scenery here is very nice and suitable for retirement. Oda Mai pressed the sword on her waist. I want the biggest room to practice swordsmanship. Molly held her chin, with a helpless expression. I don't want to mention it. Having said that, that's what you meant when you said thank you at the beginning, right? Knowing that none of us can run away, it's better to say thank you in advance. So that do you feel better that we are forced to come to this hellish place? Well. Yilin's smile froze. Molly was really right. Ahem, then I will assume that you all agree. Yilin waved his hand and quickly made a decision, lest these people regret it, and said quickly, you don't have to worry about the next thing, I have my own arrangements. But the most important thing right now is to give our team first, no, the new force, give it a resounding name. Pan Xiaozheng's movement of stroking the stick suddenly froze. Loud. He suddenly had a bad feeling. This guy's naming taste. Wait a moment. Danger. Before Pan Xiaozheng could come up with reasonable opinions, Yilin had already expressed her thoughts. Apocalypse. From today on, we are the apocalypse. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 488. 23 well-sealed bags of high-quality rice. If the dog doesn't grow moldy meat, discard it. Some daily necessities. Some warm clothes for the shelter. Yilin frowned, and while counting the supplies in the shelter with Molly, she began to feel the seriousness of the situation. There is no time to waste in finding food. Before the arrival of the 4 towers, due to the impact of the nuclear crisis, the Z5 Council secretly built shelters in many places that could withstand radiation. But for well-known reasons, after the arrival of the 4 towers, the emergence of the restricted air zone virtually eliminated the risk of dropping nuclear bombs at high altitudes. As a result, these shelters were abandoned one after another. In the timeline before Yilin was reborn, Yilin had spent some time in this abandoned shelter with Lu Ho and others, so Yilin knew the specific location of this place. The most serious thing now is food. Yes. Molly nodded helplessly and agreed, although the staple food is sufficient, we will not starve to death for a while. But without protein, vitamins, and other nutritional supplements, we will not be able to survive for too long. This shelter is located deep in the Himalayas. It is unrealistic to use ordinary means to transport supplies at national borders. Okay, I'll figure it out. There's one more thing. Seeing that Yilin agreed readily, and because she trusted him and didn't doubt his presence, Molly said another thing, this shelter has a total of 4 floors. But because it is currently using backup power supply system, I am worried that the energy is not enough, so currently only the first floor is open. After Yilin was silent for a moment, she understood the meaning of Molly's words. You mean, you are afraid that there will not be enough rooms in the future? Yes, for now, the heating system is necessary. Otherwise we will all freeze to death. and although it is full of snow outside, fresh water is not difficult to find, but it must be purified, stored, and heated for use. These are all it all consumes electricity. I'm worried. Haha, Yilin waved her hand to dispel Molly's doubts. You can open 2 floors first. There is no need to be so tight. There is a wind power generation device on the other side of this snow-capped mountain. I have tried it before. If 2 floors are opened, the power will be enough. Okay. Molly quickly wrote it down in a small notebook. At this time, Molly has become the housekeeper of Apocalypse, responsible for all kinds of matters in the shelter. Yilin remembered something, by the way. Regarding increasing the types of food, we may have to wait for a few more days. Huh? Why? Molly asked as a habit. Oh, it's forbidden. Molly was speechless, but she understood. I'm going to go wandering again. At this time, Yilin suddenly raised her head and looked diagonally upward. Gradually, a hint of amusement appeared on Yilin's face. However, it is still possible to add extra meals in advance. At the same time Yilin said these words. Emperor Wang Tian was very excited. The tail swung and whirred. These past few days can be called the second most miserable moment since Wang Tiandi was born. Eating porridge every day almost makes your mouth smell like bird. What's even more cruel is that there is no animal world to watch here, which makes Wang Tiandi suffer double torture in his heart and dog body. So Wang Tiandi slipped out. Isn't it enough to do it yourself and have enough food and clothing? I, Wang Tiandi, am an independent male dog. I have endured famine, fought monsters, and waded through mountains of swords and seas of fire. How can I still suffocate a dog to death with such predicament? Wang Tiandi worked hard to pretend to be a stone, with the entire dog's head buried in the snow. He lay in wait for 3 hours and finally caught a snow fox in the snowy mountains. The dog stalks in the snow. When approaching the entrance of the shelter, before the dog could enjoy the joy of successfully smuggling, the dog froze on the spot. You are a real dog. There was a pot floating behind Yilin. The water is boiling in the pot and it's steaming hot. Emperor Wang Tian was dumbfounded. Whoa! 10 minutes later, Emperor Wang Tiandi finished the pot of game millet soup while crying silently. After a hearty meal, Oda Mai, who had always been taciturn to everyone except Yilin, couldn't help but give Gozi a thumbs up and a like. This dog is good and can be kept. God is so good. This Wang obviously doesn't want to do it, okay. Emperor Wang Tian gnawed on the fleshless bones depressedly. After meal. Yi, are you still used to the climate here? Well, it's okay. Maybe it's because I'm in better shape and I don't feel too cold. That's fine. The treatment for your eyes may not be possible for the time being. But I will find a way to move those instruments as soon as possible. In the shelter, if you need anything, just tell Meng Meng directly, and I will. It might be busier. Ling Yi smiled and shook her head. It doesn't matter. If it was really effective, it would have been visible long ago. Just let nature take its course. You are busy with your business. Don't worry about me. By the way, if you are free, you go back to the orphanage and take a look? I don't know why, but I'm always worried about the director and the others. Good. Yilin agreed. But having said that, Ling Yi's physical fitness is really good. Molly wrapped herself into a ball and was shivering from the cold in the shelter. But Ling Yi was walking in the snow wearing only a cotton-padded jacket, but her expression didn't show any discomfort. After eating and drinking, Yilin went to the transmission room on the second underground floor of the shelter alone. This is the room that Yilin specially cleaned up to arrange the teleportation technique. The skeleton circuit of the teleportation technique has been arranged in advance. The key coordinates are left empty. Wherever you want to go, you can temporarily arrange the core to complete the circuit. In fact, compared to the lack of electricity, Yilin was more worried about the crystal. This is the Himalayan mountains, which is frozen all year round, with occasional blizzards and endless wind. The electricity converted from wind energy is a renewable resource for the shelter, and it is just a matter of whether it is enough. But the crystals used to construct the crystal pattern technique were obtained by Yulin from the world of Auranos. Although Yulin sacrificed the clearance evaluation of that trial and obtained a warehouse full of crystals, after this period of squandering, Yulin's inventory has been reduced by nearly 1/3. Even Yulin's redemption and destruction enchanted weapon can consume spiritual energy to generate charged bullets, replacing crystals as the core of the spell to activate the spell. But in this way, it can only slow down the consumption of crystals. This is not a once and for all solution. Is there a pure energy body in this world that can perfectly replace the crystal? Yulin thought seriously. But after thinking about it, it seems that there is no such stable and substantial energy that can replace the cross-world existence of crystal. I have a headache. Currently, if we want this shelter to operate smoothly, the teleportation technique is indispensable. Whether it is the transportation of various supplies or the long-distance movement of our combatants, we must rely on the teleportation technique. Right now. When Yulin was thinking, she remembered the scene at the end of the world of Uranus, where a Deng drew a circle and teleported thousands of troops under the sea of clouds. Want to learn? Think. It's a pity that I don't have time. In other words, a Deng thinks that I can learn this trick. It's just that he doesn't have time to teach me. Yulin imitated a Deng's actions at that time and drew several circles in front of her. But it's of no use. After a while, Yulin laughed to herself. If only it were that easy to learn. Since the circle he drew casually was of no use, Yulin could only put the matter aside for the time being. Molly is really becoming more and more proficient in constructing circuits. This teleportation technique was written by Molly. Yulin came here just to check if there was anything wrong. Watched for a while. It seemed that there was nothing that needed to be adjusted. Yulin smiled and left. In fact, for Yulin, the most urgent thing that needs to be solved is preparation for the next trial. Before I knew it, another month had passed since I returned from the world of Auranos. The next trial is coming soon. Although Yulin is an experienced driver, her mentality remains the same. But preparation work still needs to be done. But in fact, for the current Yulin, the normal difficulty trial is not a problem at all. During the battle in the capital, he was forced to take the forbidden fruit of wisdom in advance, and his spirit directly broke through the first layer of spiritual locks and reached the transcendent. His current burst of strength can even kill one person under the siege of 4 extraordinary melee apostles, leaving F4 with only one person missing. If this spreads out, it will be a horrific achievement that shocks the entire apostle circle. In the huge circle of apostles and the hierarchical structure distributed in a pyramid, extraordinary apostles can be said to be rare and rare. It was hard for Yulin to imagine what kind of plot a mere third-level trial would turn into before it would pose too much of a threat to Yulin. Therefore, when Yulin thought about this aspect, she was not too worried. Just let nature take its course. As for the luck value, Yulin isn't too worried now. As long as he is strong enough, even if he encounters another cheating trial mode, the only ones who will be unlucky will be the other people assigned to Yulin. The next day. Sunny. Yulin silently practiced her telekinesis in the snow. The third day. Weather, blizzard. Yulin floated in the blizzard, using psychic power armor to resist the wind and snow. The third day. The fourth day. So, another week has passed. At dinner time. While drinking the hot porridge, Molly looked at the absent-minded Yulin and finally couldn't help but ask. By the way, what are you doing these days? I feel like you are very anxious. If it were you, once a month, which was normal, but what was supposed to come didn't come, would you be anxious? That must make you anxious, Molly suddenly realized. On the side, Ling Yi couldn't help but burst into laughter when she heard this. Wait, Molly said subconsciously, and then she realized that something was wrong with this sentence. She blushed and argued, I haven't tried it, how do I know if it will cause anxiety? You are a grown man and have nothing to worry about. What to do with this kind of problem? Ling Yi smiled even more happily. But Yilin couldn't laugh. He is serious. Xiao Wu, Wang Er, Lao Pan, come on. After meal. Yilin called Oda Wu, Wang Tiandi, and Pan Zhenji to her room alone. Boom. Oda Wu knocked Pan Zhenji unconscious. Pan Xiaozheng is back online. During this period, in order to prevent Pan Zhenji from messing around in the shelter, Oda Wu became more and more skilled in knocking people out with her backhand. After a brief inquiry. So, you haven't entered the other world for more than a month. After getting the same answer from 3 people and 1 dog, Yilin frowned deeply and fell into deep thought. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 489. At the same time. Capital. The clouds are gathering. There was a drizzle of rain falling from the sky. It's like someone is crying. Among the high-rise buildings, the howling wind stirred up the dense rain, and it sounded like someone was laughing. One of the roads in the capital was blocked by armed police for several kilometers. On both sides of the blocked road, thousands of people held dark umbrellas, solemn and silent. Black armored vehicles drove slowly past. Like stars over the moon, in the center of the convoy, there is a dark coffin placed on the roof of one of the armored vehicles. The convoy was moving very slowly. Behind the motorcade, there was a long line of people, old and young, wearing the same white ancient robes, without umbrellas, silently soaking in the rain, performing some kind of ceremony. Zhu Tianzong walked in front of the funeral procession with an indifferent expression and dull eyes. Behind him were 108 people from the Zhu family. Behind him was a sword. Originally, in this kind of funeral ceremony, evil things like weapons were not allowed to appear. But Zhu Tianzong insisted on this. After the Zhu family's funeral procession, Yu Meng, Zhao Yulong, and several other elite members of the special group followed the motorcade and the Zhu family's procession to maintain order at the scene. He probably won't show up. There was silence all the way. Zhao Yulong held up a dark umbrella and broke the silence. Won't. Yu Meng shook her head. Her face was wrapped in thick gauze, and the gauze was stained with dried blood. More than 10 days have passed. He is coming. He should have come a long time ago. Having said that. But Yu Meng's whole mind was tense and she didn't dare to relax. She looked behind her from time to time, fearing that a blood-red knife would stick out from nowhere. From that day on, Yu Meng never slept peacefully. She didn't dare. As Yilin said, with his current strength, as long as he wanted to, he could come behind Yu Meng at any time, stretch out the knife, and cut Yu Meng's throat. Zhao Yulong saw the fatigue and fear in Yu Meng's eyes. He couldn't tell that Yu Meng's calmness was deliberately for others to see. Since that incident, many people in the special team have left. As for why I left, there is no need to explain the reason. Because Mo Rennie is no longer there. Do you hate me? Yu Meng saw Zhao Yulong silently looking at the funeral procession in front of him, embarrassed and speechless, so he suddenly asked. Hate, I can't say it. It's just that I don't understand why it has developed to this point. Do you still remember that GM once told us that as the number of apostles increases and their levels increase, within 3 years, there will be an unprecedented disaster sweeping the world? Remember? Never mind. Yu Menben wanted to say something else. But Zhao Yulong's tone made her don't know how to say it. By the way, Marquis Lu, is he feeling better now? Still alive? Yu Meng removed his umbrella and looked at the rain clouds in the sky. He couldn't tell the joy or sorrow in his tone. His third, fourth and fifth cervical vertebrae suffered comminuted fractures and severe contusion of the cervical spinal cord. He is currently at a high level. He is in a state of paraplegia and respiratory failure, but using a ventilator and medicine can temporarily save his life. However, with the current medical level, it is impossible to treat him as a human. He may not be willing to become a reformer. Yes. Zhao Yulong frowned. Moreover, this technology was snatched from several branches of the evangelical society. Some of it is obviously beyond the technological level we should have, and we haven't been able to fully understand it. The risk is too high. Big. Forget it. Yu Meng was not so mad as to transform Lu Ho into a semi-mechanical life. After a moment of silence, Yu Meng did not want to say anything more on this topic. We can only wait until he enters the other world for trial. At that time, a lot of points were spent to repair the injury. After chatting about the above topics, the two fell into silence again. The funeral ceremony went smoothly and no one disturbed it. The headless corpse of Emperor Zhu Chong was sent all the way to the Zhu family's ancestral residence. That house seemed much deserted after the death of Emperor Zhu Chong. After the coffin was placed in the Zhu family mourning hall, Yu Lixin, Ying Xia, Zhao Taiqian, and Li Kai arrived at the Zhu family one after another. After each observed a moment of silence, they left one after another. There were no farewell words or tears. He was as indifferent as a stranger leaving this world. When leaving Zhu's house, Li Kai stopped when passing Zhao Yulong and Yu Meng. I heard about the aftermath of that incident. Li Kai smiled slightly. Thank you for your care and education of the dog during this short period of time. But next, my dog will be busy with wedding arrangements, so he will withdraw from the special group first. On the surface, Li Kai was talking about Li Erpang's withdrawal from the special group, such a seemingly simple matter. But in fact, it showed his attitude and stance. He put Li Erpang into the special group because he was invincible. Now that Mo Reni is gone, there is no need for Li Erpang to stay in the special group. With the death of Emperor Zhu Chong and the departure of Mo Rendi, the country's superstructure seemed calm on the surface, but there was a hidden wave on the inside. No one knows what the situation will be like next. Originally this was a very serious matter. But when Li Kai used Li Erpang's wedding as a tactful excuse, Zhao Yulong thought of the scene where Li Erpang and Suzayasu stood together and paid homage to each other, and inexplicably wanted to laugh and cry. Congratulations. After holding it in for a while, Zhao Yulong's mouth twitched. He cupped his hands and said only these two words. Keep everything simple and don't invite outsiders. Goodbye. Li Kai took a few steps, turned back and sighed softly. You should be lucky that Mo Rendi is not dead. Zhao Yulong. Yu Meng. After Li Kai left, Yu Meng's eyes flickered under the thick gauze. She did not stay in the solemn Zhu's house any longer, and turned around to leave in the rain. The dark umbrella flew high into the sky with a gust of wind. Zhao Yulong hesitated for a moment and then chased after him. Xiaomeng, you. Yu Meng interrupted Zhao Yulong. Hunting for qualifications is a general trend and no one can stop it. No, I want to ask. Zhao Yulong shook his head slightly. Is your next trial postponed? Yu Meng stopped, frowned slightly, and said in surprise, You too. I always feel like something is wrong. The time for me to enter the next trial has already passed. Postponed. In the Apostle Forum, panic began to appear. The trials that were going well at first, as regular as an ant's and terrifyingly frequent, suddenly stopped. More and more people are posting requests for help on the Apostle Forum. What should I do if I can't come to the trial? I have postponed it for 10 days. It's time for the poster to take a pregnancy test. No kidding, many people have postponed it. What happened? Could it be that the tower is gone? If you say there is no tower, why don't you take a look at the whole telescope yourself, idiot? A brain is a good thing, but it's a pity you don't have one. Don't be so irritable upstairs, maybe he is a pure strength, with a pair of iron fists to penetrate everything, doesn't it make sense to have no brains? In fact, this should be a good thing. In the trials, he went through hardships and fought to the death. No one knows whether he will come out alive after a minute. Wouldn't it be nice to not have to go through trials? But humans are such weird creatures. This kind of mood, to put it bluntly, is actually the same as that of a woman's aunt. It was really annoying when I came to visit my aunt. But suddenly not coming, it will make people worried about gains and losses, and sleepless nights. 10 days. In the snowy mountains. At night. Yulin sat on the glacier all day, restless. He sat down on a towering glacier, using the coolness under his butt to calm down. Yulin has been peeking at the Apostle Forum these days, looking at the panic revealed in the posts, and he felt an atmosphere of imminent rain. Etc. Yulin suddenly remembered something. More than half a month ago, when he touched the relic box of Emperor Zuchong, a strange reminder clearly appeared in front of him. Please cherish this precious opportunity. Yulin has touched countless relic boxes. But Yulin, who is experienced, has never seen such a strange and warm reminder when touching the box. This unprecedented unknown change made Yulin vaguely feel that something was wrong. Call. Yulin floated in the glacier. Although she was very anxious, Yulin did not waste a single second while waiting to enter the trial. Cultivation. Although Yulin doesn't like to use such old-fashioned words, Yulin is indeed busy cultivating these days. One further application: methods of thought power. 2. Adeng didn't have time to teach him the more advanced circle drawing crystal pattern technique. 3. The unlocking of skills. Yulin's sudden breakthrough of the lock this time was unplanned. So relaxing. It was so easy that Yulin skipped the most critical step of breaking through the mental lock. After the future disaster breaks out, the way to unlock the spiritual side apostle is no longer a secret. The way to unlock the mental lock requires working on skills. Simply completing the trial in the other world, stacking attributes, and stacking the mental attributes to a peak of 10 points, no matter how much you pile up, or in the wrong way, you will not be able to unlock this lock. Locks, as the name suggests, are the confinement of living entities such as human beings. Breaking the original limitations of skills is the well-known way to unlock the spiritual lock. It's like duration limit, skill limit, range limit, target limit. As long as you use the skill and break the explicit limit of the skill, the lock will naturally open. Only after the skills are unlocked can they become the power that truly belongs to the apostles themselves, and become the third type of ability between skills and enhancement. It's like I took a shortcut and got it right in one step. But with my current mental attributes and familiarity with the skills, it shouldn't be too difficult. The ability of Yu Meng and Zhao Yulong is precisely because they were able to use their skills in so many ways after they were unblocked. Right now, a handsome goshawk with an enchanting figure spread its wings high above the snowy field and flew across it. Yulin stared at the goshawk that was flying very smoothly, her eyes slightly focused. Pain. Snapped. The goshawk trembled all over, its wings and feet spasmed wildly, its 8 fingers were intertwined, and it suddenly fell to the ground from mid-air. Extra meal tonight. Yulin stretched out her hand and controlled the twitching goshawk from a distance, feeling very good. Suddenly, the death mark on Yulin's chest shook crazily. The earthquake was extremely strong. Every time he moved and hit, it was as if there was a small perpetually moving motor on his chest, which was as fierce as ever. Yulin's expression was stunned. After waking up, Yulin set all the friends on the list to do not disturb mode for the sake of cleanliness. After all, his current identity is a bit sensitive. Who could it be? Yulin murmured in a low voice, with a confused look on his face, but still opened the communication panel to see what was going on. But look at this. Yulin's expression suddenly changed. The next second, he flew directly from the glacier and rushed back to the shelter as quickly as possible. This is a signature from Information. Announcement. To all you who are small, stupid, and ignorant. I am yours. God. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 490. Not long ago. A certain city. The moon is dark. The wind is high. The clouds of sorrow are gathering. The bustling city during the day ends with the hustle and bustle of the day and turns on the night sage mode. Among the tall buildings, there were several dark shadows, ready to move. Target number 1232, Li Huaki, male, 27 years old, professional social worker. Risk assessment, B. Hunt difficulty assessment, A+. The recommended hunting method is to snipe at the same time from a long distance. The target may have the ability to doppelganger. Target found. Yo, he's picking up girls. To be precise, he was picking up 3 girls at the same time. Envious. Designated reserves by assignment for specific hunts. To lock the 3 clones of target No 1232. Waiting for the next instruction. Similar scenes began to play out in different cities under the same night sky. Target number 756, Xing Fei, male, 29 years old, professional lawyer. Risk assessment, B. Hunt difficulty assessment, B-. Recommended hunting method, close quarters. Target number 987, Zhenanan, male, 35 years old, professional underground boxer. Hazard assessment, A-. Hunting difficulty assessment, C-. Recommended hunting method, poisoning. Target number 1553, He Tianyu, male, 19 years old, professional student. Risk assessment, C. Hunt difficulty assessment, D-. Recommended hunting method, casual. The gauze on Yu Meng's face was removed. The bruises have dissipated quite a bit. With a face as deep as water, she is located at the headquarters of the special team in the capital, receiving intelligence from all over the country. Everyone, lock the target. The first batch of hunting targets are all locked. Zhao Yulong looked at Yu Meng, who was busy, frowned, his eyes flickered, and he walked silently outside the door. The headquarters of the special group is located in a busy city. It is approaching early morning in the capital, and there are still many people moving on the road in a hurry. There are many drunken men and women on the street, hugging each other, talking to each other, or talking about business. Under the night, Zhao Yulong was silent and lit a cigarette. Half a month ago, Zhao Yulong announced that he had failed to quit smoking. Suddenly, he didn't want to quit. Downhearted. As a man, if he can even quit smoking, what cruel things can he not do? Zhao Yulong comforted himself in this way. As the smoke rings condensed into various strange shapes were slowly puffed out from Zhao Yulong's mouth, Zhao Yulong leaned in the corner and looked at the entangled men and women coming and going, without any envy in his eyes. Since that incident, the relationship between him and Yu Meng has become very delicate. It's like, something is different. Yu Meng is still the same Yu Meng, but the Yu Meng that Zhao Yulong has always longed for seems to have disappeared. No, maybe it never existed. The pungent smell of smoke made Zhao Yulong feel better. Suddenly. Right now. Zhao Yulong was keenly aware that something was wrong with the atmosphere in the air. The expressions of the men and women on the street, something wasn't right. In Zhao Yulong's view, at this time and in this atmosphere, there is something wrong with young men and women who don't open a house. However, the pairs of men and women on the street at night look surprised, pointing and saying something in the air in front of them. The next second, people are gone. Zhao Yulong's pupils shrank suddenly, and the cigarette hanging from his mouth fell to his feet with a clatter. Living people just disappeared in front of him. It's a summons. The blonde beauty wearing a short skirt had a shocked expression. She looked at the man who had been discussing the price with her not long ago and disappeared from the place. She suddenly sat on the ground, speechless. Ah 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 ah. Screams echoed among the tall buildings. The blonde beauty stared straight into the air in front of her, her eyes wide open, with an expression as if she had seen a ghost. Zhao Yulong's eyes narrowed, and the next moment, regardless of the shock, he crossed 20 meters in one step and came to the blonde beauty. Help, help. The moment the blonde beauty saw Zhao Yulong appear, she didn't react for a moment and started talking nonsense. It seemed that a living person disappeared in front of her out of thin air, leaving her unable to react for a while. After listening for about 10 seconds, Zhao Yulong finally heard what the blonde beauty said. What should I choose? What should I choose? Am I dreaming? What the hell is this Yesno thing? Zhao Yulong understood it as soon as he heard it. Shock. It turns out she was summoned too. This must be an event of astonishing probability. But looking at the psychological quality of this beauty, she doesn't look like someone who qualifies. It seems that people's psychological endurance cannot be generalized. Zhao Yulong lit another cigarette. The flickering firelight cast a shadow of scum on Zhao Yulong's face. If you don't want to die, just choose no. Who are you? The blonde beauty raised her head blankly, and then she noticed the man standing not far from her, lighting a cigarette in a pretentious manner. If you don't want to die, just choose no, do you understand? Of course, if you want to enter a new world, you can also choose yes. Who wants to die? The blonde beauty reacted, her crying makeup flowing down her face. I saw her hurriedly poking at the no in front of her. But suddenly, the blonde beauty's face was stunned, and she whispered softly, why is there a line after no? Call out. People are gone again. Snap. Another cigarette fell from Zhao Yulong's mouth. No. It's not just them. Zhao Yulong turned around in horror. Not long ago, there were many lonely men and women on the street, but in the blink of an eye, everyone on the street disappeared. All, gone. An inexplicable terror, invisible and colorless, completely enveloped Zhao Yulong. Zhao Yulong opened his mouth in shock. The scene in front of him made him unable to recover for a long time. Target locked. In different cities, reserve members used their own methods to target targets using the hunting methods recommended in the data. Those who can be recorded on the list are all low-level apostles. He has some magical abilities, but his physical fitness is the same as that of ordinary people, so it is not too difficult to kill. A reserve soldier lying on the rooftop, who was about to start the hunting moment under the dark night, was trying hard to suppress the excitement in his heart and carefully aim at the target. A few hundred meters away, in a building, the target had just come out of the bathroom, naked, in a unique shape, and very unrestrained. Who will die if you don't die? I don't even close the curtains when I take a shower. Aim. Loaded. Prepare. But suddenly, the moment the reserve member was about to pull the trigger, he was shocked. Do you believe in God? Yes/no? This shot almost knocked Bayu out. The person on the other side seemed to notice something and closed the curtains. Team, Captain, I've been summoned. The summoned reserve member did not care about the unethical closing of the curtains on the other side. He turned around and looked at his teammates with his face red and white, trembling. But look back. He noticed that there seemed to be something wrong with the expressions of his teammates. You also. Look carefully, there seems to be something wrong with that line of writing. What's wrong? Squint your eyes and look carefully. Really? After taking a closer look, the line of writing was indeed a bit strange. Yes, that's right. But behind no, there is a line of tiny words. Together they are clearly. No problem. What's even more outrageous is that slash. It actually consists of a row of ant-shaped letters standing vertically. Of course. Ridiculous. Why haven't I heard of this kind of sexy way before? But for reservists, there's nothing to hesitate about. They stand here today precisely to hunt down the qualifications of others and become true apostles. Now there is no need to hunt, they have been summoned on their own initiative. Even though this option seems a bit tricky, for them, they have been mentally prepared and have been looking forward to it for a long time. One by one, the reserve members disappeared. Zhao Yulong jumped up high, reached the high place, and stood condescendingly. His perception was released, and in his perception, the entire city seemed like a dead city, with almost no signs of living people. In the night sky, there are occasional sounds of babies crying, but in this deathly silent environment, it is a bit more strange and desolate. Almost everyone has disappeared. Zhao Yulong felt a chill on his back. Impossible. How could everyone be summoned? This is impossible. No. Xiao Meng. Something bad is going to happen. Zhao Yulong chewed his cigarette and ran all the way back to the headquarters of the special team. As soon as he returned to the room where Yu Meng was, Zhao Yulong's eyes trembled. I saw Yu Meng slumped on the chair in despair, his eyes empty. When Zhao Yulong's panicked voice came, Yu Meng slowly turned his head like a zombie, his indifferent eyes were lifeless, and he just murmured in a low voice, I already know. Right now. Yu Meng trembled all over and clamped her legs. Zhao Yulong felt the death mark vibrating crazily. The feeling of shock this time was stronger than ever before, making him unable to stop. Who is it? At this time, there should be no time to read the information. But the vibration was really too strong, with a faint hint of urging. Yu Meng and Zhao Yulong opened the communication panel at the same time. In one of the signatures is message sent. Announcement. To all of you who are small, stupid, and ignorant. I am yours. God. At the same time. Ching Cheng. I said Jing Jing. Su Xiong looked at Su Jingjing walking out of the bathroom with a dark face. After holding it in for a few days, he finally couldn't help but ask, are you feeling uncomfortable these days? Dad, I feel like your mood is not quite right. You don't have to worry about it, Su Jingjing growled lowly. Su Xiong was sitting on the newly bought 18-position all-electric massage chair, drinking hot wolfberry chrysanthemum tea, inhaling the aroma of wolfberry through his nose, and expressed dissatisfaction with Su Jingjing's hard tone. Is it an endocrine disorder? No, let me tell you, your father has been here for a long time. At your age, you should have found a boyfriend long ago. Oh, by the way, what about that young man that Dad and I brought over that day? Your dad is not bragging, your dad and I have a really good eye for seeing people. Look, your dad can find your mother in the vast sea of people. This kind of vision, isn't he great? Even though he is young, he is a great guy among people, he is very awesome, and he has a promising future. Su Xiong took advantage of the situation and became comfortable. It was okay not to mention this. When Su Xiong mentioned Yilin, Su Jingjing recalled the fear of being dominated that night and became angry. Get out. Right now. Mrs. Su wore an apron and walked out of the kitchen with a puzzled expression. Old Su, there seems to be something wrong with my eyes. Why do I feel like two lines of words are floating? Do you believe in God, yes, no, or something like that? Su Jingjing was about to get into the room to sulk. The moment she heard her mother say these words, she was frozen in place as if she had been shocked by an electric shock. Cold hands and feet. Don't mess around. Su Jingjing suddenly panicked. But when she reminded her, it was already too late. The shocked expression on Su's mother's face before she disappeared was completely frozen in Su Anjing's desperate eyes. Wife. Su Xiong got angry and stood up, slapping the table and slapping No by the way. The next second, Su Xiong also disappeared. Plop. Su Jingjing knelt on the ground helplessly. Right now. The skull-shaped mark imprinted on the back of Su Jingjing's right shoulder shook crazily. The amplitude is stronger than ever. Announcement. To all you who are small, stupid, and ignorant. I am yours. God. She still doesn't know where she is now and what happened. After Su Anjing finished reading the long announcement as quickly as possible, his desperate eyes regained their luster. Maybe it's because Su Xiong just finished Amway not long ago. Or maybe there are other reasons. At this desperate moment, a name that made her uncomfortable suddenly flashed through Su Jingjing's mind. Please. Save my parents. I promise you. Su Anjing opened the communication panel and sent an emergency SOS message to Yilin. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 491. Yi Yi. Meng Meng. Yilin used the fastest speed to find Ling Yi in the shelter. There was no entertainment in the shelter. Molly was playing an exploration game with Ling Yi in the shelter. Yilin's furious expression startled Molly, who was holding Ling Yi's hand. Acridine. What are you doing? Scaring people. Yilin walked quickly towards Molly. When she saw that both Molly and Ling Yi were still safe, she breathed a sigh of relief, and her tense expressions relaxed a lot. You didn't receive the summons? Yilin asked cautiously. Summoning? What summons? Molly looked slightly startled. That's it, do you believe in God? Molly, you clicked no on that call many years ago. No. Wait, here it comes again. Molly was first confused as to why Yilin suddenly asked this question, but then she became slightly excited. Again. Let's not talk about why Molly was so excited when Yilin mentioned summoning. Yilin looked at Ling Yi again. But before Yilin could ask, Ling Yi noticed Yilin's mood and shook her head with a smile. No, don't worry, aren't we here well? Nothing. Yilin frowned when she got the answers from the two people, but didn't say much. After a moment, Yilin remembered that there was an ordinary person named Mo Rendi in the shelter. Without asking, Yilin directly spread his perception and enveloped the entire shelter. Because there are 3 women in the shelter, Yilin usually does not have full range of perception. After all, it's not good. But the situation was urgent, and Yilin couldn't care about that much now. The old man was in the room, boxing slowly. Judging from his expression, there didn't seem to be anything strange about him. Yilin used the fastest speed to open Mo Rendi's door. Knocking from the side, Mo Rendi didn't seem to feel the call from the tower. After confirming each one, Yilin made arrangements. Everyone, come to the conference room for a meeting. At this moment, he finally seemed like the leader of an organization. As he spoke, there was no doubt in his voice. 2 minutes later, Molly, Ling Yi, and Mo Rendi all arrived at the conference room. When Yilin and the other 3 arrived, Oda Wu and Wang Tiandi had already worked together to drag Lao Pan and pinned him firmly in the corner to prevent him from running around. In this icy and snowy environment, if Lao Pan really ran away, it would be troublesome to find him. First of all, let me confirm one thing. After everyone sat down, Yilin stood up, his eyes fell on the faces of Mo Rendi, Ling Yi, and Moli. After a pause, he said, we are apostles. Oda Mai's face changed slightly and she stood up. Wang Tiandi's eyes widened. Yilin clutched her chest, feeling no discomfort. What do you think you are? Molly, Amorendi, and Ling Yi don't know why. Lao Pan's brain wasn't recovered yet, so he didn't feel anything. But Oda Wu and Wang Tiandi, when Yilin said these words, combined with the official information they received from gods, they understood it instantly. The prohibition has been lifted. Molly was stunned. An unprecedented event has happened. If I am not wrong, the outside world must be in chaos at this moment. While muttering to himself, Yilin had a complicated expression, reopened the announcement from the gods, and read it carefully. Announcement. To all you who are small, stupid, and ignorant. I am yours. God. Starting from today, this game will be upgraded to version 2.0, and specific rule changes will be included in the detailed rules. This enjoyable game will enter the 2.0 public beta era. The real suffering begins. Oh, this new era is as you wish. Attachment, version update instructions. Click for details. This new era is as you wish. For some reason, Yilin always felt that this announcement was a bit strange to read. Before that, through various clues and the strange things he noticed around him, Yilin deduced that Xiao 11 who appeared next to him from time to time was the god of this world. Its status is similar to Uranos in the previous trial world. Substituting the first three sentences into the tone of Xiao 11, it is very vivid and has no sense of violation. But what happened next, gave Yilin a strange sense of déjà vu. The second half of the announcement sounded like another person's tone. Especially the last sentence. I wonder how Yuman, who has been clamoring to welcome the new era, will feel and what his face will look like when he sees this announcement. There isn't much information in the announcement, but it's enough to explode. Yilin also couldn't figure out why the world had collapsed to this point. The era of public beta testing. In the announcement, the words National Public Test gave Yilin a bad feeling, so she found Emily, Ling Yi, and Amorendi in such a hurry. Yilin knows the trials, cruelty, and dangers in this world best. He really didn't want to, so Molly and Ling Yi were summoned to become members of the Apostles, traveling across the world to carry out horrific and cruel tasks. Amorendi was different, and Yilin wasn't worried. If he becomes an apostle, only others will be unlucky. Why haven't they been summoned? If I have to say it, Amorendi and Molly have refused to be summoned. It is not impossible to be included in the blacklist. There is only one chance. But why is Ling Yi? Could it be that, under the so-called universal public beta, she still can't meet the requirements of being summoned? No, since this announcement says that it is a public beta test, the summoning requirements must be lowered. According to the previous requirements of 10 attributes of the 3 dimensions, if you hit a sign, you may not be able to hit even one that meets the requirements. Preparing apostles. Maybe, it's an eye problem. Yilin thought to himself. He felt that something was fishy, but now seemed not to be the time to study why Ling Yi was not summoned. Prohibitions have been lifted. It also means that the existence of apostles and trials will be completely exposed to the eyes of ordinary people. From now on, when elements such as apostles, towers, trials, powers and supernormal are no longer hidden in the shadows, all abnormalities will become everyday. This world, because of this so-called version update, will undergo earth-shaking changes. New era. Even though the last sentence of announcement had a strange tone. But it is undeniable that the description in the announcement is very accurate. After tonight, when dawn rises, a new era is coming. Times have changed. Since the constraints of the prohibited items disappeared with the version update, Yilin quickly explained their identities to Ling Yi, Emily, and Amorendi. In the official terminology of the 4 towers, people like us who shuttle through various cruel trials and perform tasks are called apostles by the towers. After tonight, the whole country, no, maybe the whole world, as long as those who can survive the first preliminary apostle screening test will become the second batch of apostles. I can't deduce how many people will die overnight, but there is no doubt that it will be many, many, many. When Yulin said this, her tone was a little more indifferent. However, this is not necessarily a bad thing. Although I don't know why it developed like this, but in this way, natural selection, the capable ones people will stand out in this turbulent situation and become the mainstay in the future. To fight against the Knights of the Apocalypse, the more people, the better. Even without this incident, when the four walking natural disasters and Knights of the Apocalypse come, with them as the center, countless people will still die. Since the ending is the same, in Yulin's view, the drastic changes in this national public beta can actually screen out more elites to prepare for the future fight against Apocalypse. Amorendi was okay, he frowned and fell into deep thought. Molly and Lingyi, under the protection of others, have been staying away from the abnormality. At this moment, when Yulin suddenly said the truth of the world and the drastic changes the world was about to face, everyone looked surprised and didn't know what to say for a long time. I am out of luck. Molly suddenly felt very sad. Why was I so arrogant at that time? Why click no? Yulin glanced at Molly. He didn't expect that this was the first thing Molly thought of after her shock subsided. Wang Tiandi raised his paws and swiped the screen in front of him, as if he was browsing something. Oda Mai also moved the fingers of her left hand in front of her, her eyes twinkling. Yulin lowered his head and without wasting any time, he immediately opened announcement and pressed his finger on click to view details after the appendix. It turns out that just click to view the details. And this kind of operation. Version 2.0 update instructions. 1. Cancel the relic box reward in the same region server. Cross-region server kills are modified to there is a certain probability of dropping the relic box. Also open the honor store. 2. Cancel the zoning restrictions of the 4 major towers after obtaining a temporary cross-region pass or a permanent cross-region pass. You can move freely across regions within the corresponding limited number of passes, but please note that I will not be held responsible once you are killed across regions. 3. Added wishing pond function. Each apostle can spend 6,888 points to draw various skills, props, resources, items, and other rewards from the wishing well, of any type. Spend 68,888 points at one time to perform 10 draws in a row, which will guarantee a rare level reward and increase the probability of epic level rewards. What the hell? Seeing the details of the version update, Yulin subconsciously shouted, you. 4. The fixed reward probability up event will be implemented for a limited time every month during the event. The getting probability up rewards will be displayed in the wishing pool. 5. Cancel the random rewards below the S rating and add a mission mode that can obtain a large number of points when an apostle dies due to various reasons and does not drop a relic box. All the relics of the dead man will be placed in the wishing well by default. 6. After obtaining the official apostle qualification, the mandatory trial will be cancelled, and will be replaced by the self-selected trial mode with a 30-day cooling time when the trial opens. 5 doors will appear in front of each apostle. The doors correspond to trials of different difficulties and keywords. The apostle can choose a door to enter every time you spend 1,000 points starting. You can browse the corresponding keywords without any cap. 7. Grass. Woof. Yulin, Oda Wu, and Wang Tiandi stood up at the same time, with expressions of shock and anger. Can you still play like this?